Well, good afternoon, everyone. We're here today to talk about the Keystone Pipeline, and the real leaders on this issue have been Senator Hoeven, Thune, Barrasso, and Murkowski. So let me tell you why I'm here. If the American people give us the opportunity to be in the majority next year, I'll be setting the agenda in consultation with my colleagues. Or as I say to audiences, I've enjoyed being the defensive coordinator, but it's easier to score if you're on offense. And the majority leader of the Senate is the offensive coordinator. So I can tell you, if we have a new majority next year and a new majority leader, the Keystone Pipeline will be voted on the floor of the Senate, something the current majority has been avoiding for literally years. And I think the reason they've been avoiding it for years is because they're afraid that it might pass with a broad bipartisan coalition. With that, let me turn it over to Senator Hoeven.
Thank you, Leader. Appreciate very much you leading off this press conference. And, you know, we're here today because tomorrow is the 6th anniversary of the application for the Keystone XL pipeline. So 6 years ago, 2008, September 19, 2008, the TransCanada Company applied for approval of a pipeline. And this actually isn't the Keystone pipeline, it's the Keystone XL. In other words, they had just built the Keystone pipeline. Now, they applied for approval of that in 2006, got approval in 2008, started construction in 2008, built in 2010. So in 2008, when they asked to build a sister pipeline, seems like a no-brainer, they're going to get approval, right? But here we are 6 years later, we still don't have approval. And the president came to our caucus. We had a meeting right here in the Capitol last year. The president said he would make a decision by the end of 2013. I think Senator Barrasso is going to talk about that a little bit. Yet here we are, still no decision. So we have a letter from all 45 members of our caucus. Every single Republican senator has signed on to this letter, once again asking the president, saying, hey, you told us you'd have a decision here by the end of last year. We're now at the 6th anniversary, no decision. We'd like a decision. We'd certainly like a response as to what you're going to do. After 6 years, you could tell the American people what you're going to do on something that's a vital infrastructure project. And for those that think that somehow it's an environmental issue, take a look at, I know it's detailed, but take a look at the chart on my far right. 5 environmental impact statements. 5. No significant environmental impact. 5 of them. What's he going? I mean, do we have to have 10? What's going on? I mean, what about following the rule of law on this thing? Right? I mean, it's just absolutely unbelievable. 5 environmental impacts, no significant, 5 environmental impact statements, all of them finding no environmental impact. And so what do we see? These are the segments of the pipeline. Millions and millions of dollars of pipeline stacked up in my state so we can build the pipeline. Actually, this is the South Dakota segment. Senator Thune can tell you all about that, but he's waiting to get a few people employed and some significant tax revenue generated from all that pipeline that's stacked up in my state and has been for almost 6 years. It's about energy. It's about jobs. It's about growing our economy. It's about tax revenue without raising taxes, right? It's about national security. You want to talk about the national security implications for just a minute? We're working on a resolution today to deal with ISIL, right? And we're getting oil from the Middle East instead of Canada? Really? The administration wants to make an argument that we should continue to get oil from the Middle East instead of Canada? Think about the resolution that we're passing today. ISIL's getting its revenue by selling oil. And here we sit 6 years later. Well, I think what's going to happen, I really do. I mean, we may not get an answer now to this letter signed by every single Republican addressed to the president on something he told us that he would do. But I think, as with all things, the American people will decide this issue. We have 57 senators that are strongly in support of this project, a strong bipartisan majority, 57. And remember, this is not just to move oil from Canada, but from my state, from Montana as well, light sweet Bakken crude. We have 57 votes for this project today, bipartisan. This thing has been bipartisan all the way through. And I strongly believe that next year we'll have the votes. We'll have the 60 we need to pass this project. And so ultimately the American people will speak on this. They will speak over the special interests that are holding it up. And we'll have the 60 votes. And then we'll need to attach it to something that the president can't veto. And that's what we'll do. Next, I'd like to call on Senator Thune for his comments. Senator?
Thank you, and appreciate the introduction from my neighbor from North Dakota. And as John pointed out, for South Dakota, this is about jobs and it's about the economy. Everybody, in every public opinion poll, the polls come back time and time again with people stating the economy is their #1 concern. And here's something that would create growth, create jobs, and in my state of South Dakota, about $100 million in earnings and about $20 million in property taxes. So you have a lot of local governments, school districts that are looking at what they could do in terms of infrastructure and education if we can get the pipeline built. And what's frustrating about it, as John pointed out, is that this is 6 years, and it's awfully hard when people are out there making investments to create this kind of uncertainty. And every year that goes by, the cost of the thing continues to go up. But we have an opportunity now, 6 years later, to get this thing done. And after 5 environmental impact statements, I think everything that can be said has been said about this. I think they've looked at all the issues. But it is about jobs, it is about the economy. It's about an administration now for 6 years has been blocking something that clearly has a profound economic benefit to people in this country, not to mention the way that it lessens our dependence upon foreign sources of energy. And I have to say too that in looking at this, everybody, the environmental groups are all worked up about this particular issue, but this is Canadian oil and some North Dakota oil, hopefully, that will be moving through this, which we're producing energy in this country that fuels our economy. And if you're going to move it, the pipeline seems to me to be a pretty environmentally sound and safe way to do that. Because if you don't, you're moving it on rail, you're moving it above ground. You're using fuel to power trucks that are obviously emitting, and railroad locomotives that are emitting. And you can bury this under the ground and move it across this country. There are already thousands and thousands and thousands of miles of pipeline in this country. Most people, I don't think, even realize that. So it's environmentally beneficial. It is obviously a benefit to the economy. It's a benefit to our national security interests, as Senator Hoeven has mentioned already. And then also the last thing I would point out, and this is something that's important to us in South Dakota right now, is it reduces the bottleneck that we have on railroad service in this country. Because right now, every day, there's a unit train moving out of North Dakota that's moving oil on rail. And we're having a hard time getting our agricultural commodities to the marketplace because of all the backlogs that have been created. And I'm not saying this is going to resolve all those. There are lots of other issues that are associated with that as well. But one thing is pretty certain, and that is that if you're not moving all that on rail, that means there are going to be more locomotives and more rail service to move the agricultural harvest that we're really concerned about right now as well. So it has implications all across our transportation system as well. This is a win-win for the American people. It's a no-brainer. It should have been done a long time ago, and I hope that if we can get the majority in the United States Senate, as Mitch McConnell said earlier, this is something that is part of an energy strategy that's good for this country. We will move. And along with that, hopefully John Barrasso's LNG export bill. But the Keystone Pipeline is an idea whose time came a long time ago. It's way overdue that we get this thing done. So now John Barrasso, I think.
Senator Barrasso.
Thanks.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Senator Hoeven for his forceful, determined leadership on this project. It has always been bipartisan. You take a look at the number of people supporting it. This is bipartisan commitment to this, to the jobs, to the energy that the American people want. I mean, to really think about it, it's about energy security, economic growth. It is good for the country. It brings in additional tax revenue and makes us less dependent on energy from foreign sources. So here we are today. We are in session for a total of, what, 2 weeks of a total of 3 months. If you take a look from August 1st all the way till Election Day, talking 3 months of time, and we're in session 2 weeks, and yet Harry Reid will not allow a vote on this important thing. And John had said, interesting enough, he said, so what's going on here? We know what's going on. President Obama and Harry Reid are held hostage by environmental extremists who do not want to vote on this piece of legislation. That's what's really going on here. This is all about funding of the Democratic Party by liberal groups who are opposed to American energy production and American energy opportunities, and that's what we're dealing with right now, today. It has been 6 years. Over a year and a half ago, I asked President Obama during our lunch, when will we know about the Keystone XL pipeline? And he said, by the end of this calendar year. That was the year 2013. We're now in year 2014, and that's coming to an end, and still no vote on the Senate floor. That's absolutely wrong. The American people know what they want. They want jobs, they want energy, they want action. We're not getting it. We don't have the accountability that we need from this administration and from this majority leader. Well, if we're fortunate enough to find ourselves in the majority, what you're going to see is a chairman of the Energy Committee named Lisa Murkowski from Alaska. And it's not going to be any just show votes in the committee that they know are not going to get to the floor, which has been what's been happening now on the Energy Committee under the current chairman. What you're going to see is actual votes being taken, cast, and the bills that are passed through the Energy Committee getting to the floor of the United States Senate, and I believe will get bipartisan support and will end up on the President's desk. And with that, I'd like to introduce Senator Lisa Murkowski.
Thank you, John. He got fired up this morning. So some of us like to celebrate anniversaries. My husband and I do. But why would we be celebrating an anniversary of 6 years and waiting? This is absolutely wrong, and the American people know that it's absolutely wrong. That we have been sitting and arguing and debating the merits and studying and over-studying whether or not this is good for the country. Is more jobs good for the country? Is more energy security good for the country? Is greater cooperation between our closest neighbor and ally, Canada, good for the country? I don't think anybody in this room is going to argue that it's not good. And yet we cannot get this administration moving. All they seem to want to do is add more time to these continual delays that are stopping a project that not only helps America, helps us from a jobs perspective, helps us from an economic perspective, helps us from an energy security perspective. I spent the morning with Senator Scott rolling out a white paper that was focused on energy insecurity in this country and what happens when just a small increase, a slight increase in your energy, in your cost of energy occurs. What happens to the average family? We talked about affordability of our energy sources. We can talk in these halls around here about some pretty theoretical things. Energy costs to families are not theoretical. They are real. They are real and they are immediate. And the American families want us to be doing more from a policy perspective to make sure that their energy is more abundant, affordable, clean, diverse, and secure. The Keystone XL pipeline fits into all of those. I was in Canada last week at an Arctic parliamentarian conference where we were all talking about energy. And I have to tell you, all my friends, without question, on the Canadian side, as well as the other Arctic parliamentarians, are all kind of scratching their heads and saying, what is going on with the United States? What is happening within this administration that you can't see what everybody else around the globe practically sees? That this is in your country's best interest. So celebrating 6 years is nothing to celebrate, my friends, but we are here to once again let the American public know, let the Congress know, let the administration know that we stand ready to do the right thing by our country and to help our friends, the Canadians, in accessing a resource that we recognize helps benefit all.
Thanks, Senator. Senator Cornyn.
Thank you. Let me start by just saying to Senator Hoeven, thank you for your dogged determination. I don't know anybody who's been a greater advocate for the Keystone XL pipeline project than Senator Hoeven, and we all, of course, here support it. You can't be for a truly all-of-the-above energy policy in America and be opposed to the Keystone XL pipeline. It's the most efficient, cleanest, safest way to transport this crude to its terminus in my state, where it will be refined into jet fuel and gasoline, and it will create a lot of jobs. And that's what a lot of my constituents, who they're not particularly card-carrying Republicans, who say, why in the world would the president be blocking this pipeline that's going to create good, well-paying jobs in southeast Texas, an area we call the Golden Triangle. So there's no good answer to this other than the ideological blinders and that Senator Barrasso was alluding to, and the fact that Tom Steyer will come after any Democrat who votes for this because of his own ideological blinders. And we all support wind and solar generation of electricity and the like, but this is a gift given to us not by government, but it's a gift given to us by the people who have invested and innovated in the oil and gas technology over the years, and are creating this huge amount of inexpensive, affordable American energy. And the geopolitics of this have already been noted, and I hope we will pass Senator Barrasso's LNG export bill, and we're going to have a robust debate about crude as well, which is going to take some time, but I think it's an important debate for us to have. So this is important. For those who wonder about these pipelines, I would ask you to do what I did, and that's go on Google or Bing or some other search engine and just type in oil and gas pipelines and look at the image that comes up. It looks like a spaghetti bowl. There are pipelines crisscrossing America everywhere, and most Americans don't know it because they operate safely, cleanly, and efficiently. And that's why this is not a happy birthday for the Keystone XL pipeline, but next year, with a Republican majority, things will be different.